My name is Jessica, and I'm a 30-year-old office worker. I work in the design department of a construction company, and currently I work from home most of the time. About twice a month, I go to the office for meetings and conferences. Even though half of the company goes to the office every day, people from other departments seem to envy me. My boss has told us that our design department will continue to work from home. The best part about working from home is avoiding the rush hour commute. I live quite far from the company, about an hour away. Thinking about spending 2 hours every day just commuting is astonishing. There is a commuting allowance, so there's no financial burden, but it's physically demanding. Another advantage of not going to the office is that I don't have to meet unpleasant coworkers. I have a pretty good relationship with my coworkers, but there's this one older lady, Carla, who just rubs me the wrong way. Carla is a year older than me, and we've known each other since university. We were in the same seminar because we both studied design, so we've talked before. We weren't that close, but she started messing with me when I joined the company.
If you have any questions, feel free to ask me anything.
I thought I could rely on her, but contrary to her words, she wasn't dependable. She was assigned to the design department, but seemed to have caused some trouble and was transferred to another department within 6 months. Carla, who was assigned to the administration department, seemed to have learned about me joining the company right away. A few days after I joined, Carla invited me to dinner. When I went with her, she said,
"Introduce me to the male employees who joined with you. There are some handsome ones this year, aren't there?"
She wanted me to hook her up with the new guys at work who started at the same time as me. I thought she might hear me out about my job struggles, but all she cared about was her own agenda. Moreover, even though she invited me, she said,
"I don't have any money on me. Can you treat me? I'll treat you next time."
She pushed the payment onto me. We never went to meals together while we were attending university, so I didn't know her true nature well. After that, she invited me to meals several times, but I always ended up paying. I've never caught her hanging with her crew, so maybe people didn't like her. She seemed happy to have a coworker like me who would do anything she asked. At first, since I didn't know anyone, I reluctantly went along with her. However, I quickly became friends with people in the same department and stopped going to meals with her. Honestly, dining with her wasn't pleasant because all she did was badmouth our boss and colleagues. Moreover, without me asking, she bragged about her history with men.
"I only date rich guys. I wouldn't bother with the average employees in our company."
I almost laughed when she was pressing me to introduce her to the male colleagues just the other day. I couldn't help but let my true feelings slip out. "Is that so? Don't you have someone you're seeing now?" Carla glared at me with a scary face when I casually said that. I realized I had made a mistake, but it was too late. I had already upset her.
"You're quite cheeky, aren't you? Do you think I don't have a boyfriend?"
"No, I didn't think that. I was just wondering what kind of wonderful person you're dating." No matter how much I tried to explain, her anger didn't subside. Besides treating her to meals, being scolded like this made me never want to dine with her again. A year into my job, I had started refusing her invitations.
"Lately, you always say no when I invite you, don't you?"
This time too, I declined her invitation to dine, and she sounded displeased. "I'm sorry, it's tough for me because I live far away. I'll definitely join you next time." I used the excuse of living far away to avoid going out with her. People in the same department also said, "She can't do her job well, yet she's always so arrogant." When Carla joined, the people working with her said,
"She acts high and mighty without understanding the work, which is why she got scolded by the department head."
They shared this with a bitter smile. It must have taken a pretty bad attitude for the mild-mannered department head to get angry. Carla, not listening to her colleagues' instructions and doing as she pleased, was pushed out of the department within 6 months. She's disliked in every department and now has settled into a role doing menial tasks in the administration department. Her relationships with men seem to be causing problems too. According to this colleague, Carla approaches handsome or wealthy employees even if they're married. Indeed, she herself said she only dates wealthy men. "You're working with her, Jessica, but it's better if you don't associate too much with her." I even received such advice. Fortunately, the world has been moving towards promoting remote work for a few years now. Since my design work can be done from home, this has been good for me. It eliminates the need for a commute and seeing the unpleasant, Carla. Then I got a call from my brother who lives at our parents' house.
It's serious. Dad has collapsed.
My father lived at home with my mother and my brother's family. He had been in good health when I saw him a little while ago, so I was shocked by my brother's sudden news. I rushed to the hospital where my father was taken, but it was too late. My father had passed away from a heart attack. For about a week after, I was so depressed I barely remember anything. My mother was just crying like me, but my brother and sister-in-law bravely managed the funeral arrangements. I still can't believe that Dad is gone. When I mentioned this, my mother, who was with my brother, asked,
You loved your father very much, didn't you? It must be especially hard for you.
But all I could do was nod. My father hadn't left a will, but my brother asked,
The family home will be mine to take care of. So, would cash be okay for you?
If you're taking care of Mom, I don't need anything. I declined the inheritance because I'm grateful to my brother and his wife for always taking care of our parents.
It's not a huge amount, so you should take it. Your father would have wanted that.
Convinced by my mother, I agreed. Although she said it wasn't much, I ended up inheriting more money than I expected. Since I rarely need to go to the office with remote work, I considered moving further away. This would allow me to live in a much better apartment. I've been living in a cheap, run-down apartment since my student days. I was always stressed out about my voice being heard in the next room during my online meetings because this apartment is run down. Having a room where I can speak loudly without worrying would allow me to work without restraint. I've always dreamed of living in a fancy apartment someday if I worked hard. For this reason, I've been saving little by little. With the money inherited from my father, I could afford a nice apartment a bit further out. I found a new apartment building just in time and decided on it. The commute will take more than twice as long, but it's only once a month. Plus, since I go to the office around noon, I avoid the rush hour. I bravely signed the contract and moved to my new place. During an online meeting, I told my colleagues about the move. I took the plunge and moved to a new apartment building. When I said this proudly, everyone seemed happy for me. Then a female colleague spoke up.
Actually, I moved too.
She smiled happily, having just gotten married, and seemed a bit shy. Her husband is quite wealthy, and unlike me, they moved to a high-rise condo in the city center. Your mansion must be spacious, right? Though she was modest, her room looked spacious and had high ceilings on camera. Everyone watching the monitor noticed this and said, Indeed, we commoners are different, and we all laughed. Her condo became a topic of conversation in the company. When she got married, it caused quite a stir in the company because of her wealthy husband. However, within our department, which works remotely, the fact that I, who appears to have less money, moved was more of a topic of conversation. Especially because it was in a new apartment building, my colleagues were even more surprised. On the day I went to the office for the first time since moving, I hoped I wouldn't have to meet Carla. I don't think she knows I moved, but I didn't want to deal with any comments. Unfortunately, I was spotted by Carla when I was leaving.
Jessica, that's pretty bad, isn't it? Not telling me something so important.
We hadn't seen each other for a while since working from home. She already seemed to know about my move, so I said, I didn't think it was a big deal, so I kept quiet. Carla stared at me with a smirk as I apologized.
So you managed to get a nice apartment, didn't you?
Carla's face, smirking with implication, was frightening. Indeed, I was able to buy an apartment with the money inherited from my father, but I wondered how she knew about it.
Thanks to you, it seems like my luck is turning around.
She walked away with a sinister laugh. I was surprised by how easily Carla left without lingering or saying something spiteful as I expected. Her last words remained unclear to me. I couldn't understand what she meant by her luck turning because I moved. Still, since I didn't receive any invitations from Carla, I was relieved and could go home. A few days later, around noon, the doorbell rang and Carla was standing there on the monitor. She had found out where I live and was holding a big suitcase.
Hurry up and open the door. I came all the way here for you.
She comes shouting at me loudly.
Despite being rich, you moved into such a countryside apartment, and it's not as luxurious as I thought.
She spoke with a very dissatisfied look, which was rude. If she entered, she might stay, so I hurried to the entrance on the first floor. I wanted to send her away before she disturbed other residents. And what's going on? Why do you have such a big suitcase? Carla spoke with a triumphant smile.
I'm pregnant with your rich husband's child, so get out.
I was puzzled by what she was saying. Huh? But I'm single. Hearing this, Carla smirked maliciously.
Don't lie so blatantly. I know you married a rich man.
Hearing about marrying a rich man, I remembered something. A female colleague who recently got married and I share the same last name. Moreover, both of us moved, so Carla got it all mixed up. Are you really pregnant, Carla? Carla hesitated when I looked at her doubtfully.
Yes, I'm 3 months pregnant.
I continued to ask, what's the name of the husband? Carla mentioned the name of my colleague's husband, which she had somehow found out. That person is not my husband, but the husband of my colleague. Carla seemed confused by this revelation. She looked at me with a surprised face, but still didn't understand. I'm not married, so it's impossible for me to be pregnant with my husband's child unless I have a time machine, right? Seeing me smile confidently, she finally realized her mistake.
Huh? So I made such a mistake and came here?
Carla suddenly looked panicked and flustered.
What should I do now? I've already quit my job.
I was surprised by this statement from Carla. Did she truly believe she could kick out my colleague and live with a rich man? When we met, and she said her luck was turning, it seems it was about this. Of course, the story about Carla being pregnant is likely a lie. Carla, you quit your job? She seemed too overwhelmed to hear me when I asked her that question. Are you okay? What happened? When I spoke kindly to Carla, who was panicking, she suddenly lunged at me.
Give me the address of the employee who married the rich guy.
She was glaring at me with a demonic face. It was clear she was planning to go to my colleague's apartment next and do the same thing. I don't know. We don't meet in person because we work from home. Carla kept demanding that I contact the colleague and get her address, but I continued to refuse. It would be a nuisance to her if Carla showed up uninvited. Eventually, she left, taking her large suitcase with her. I thought she had given up, but I called my female colleague just in case, warning her that a strange employee from my acquaintance might come, so she should be careful. That night, the colleague contacted me to report that Carla had indeed shown up. Are you okay? Was there any damage? The colleague nonchalantly replied, There's a security guard stationed at my apartment, so the noisy woman was quickly taken away by the police. It turns out a real luxury apartment like hers is different from mine, with tight security. That person was from our company? She didn't seem to know about Carla, so I filled her in. Don't worry, she has already left the company, so she's no longer related to us. We laughed about it. Carla got bailed out by the police, but her parents gave her an earful for dragging them into it. Having quit her job, she was taken back to her parents' house. It also came to light that she had been splurging a lot of money on her favorite guy at a nightclub, incurring a substantial debt which her parents had to pay off on her behalf. Now that Carla's parents are watching her every move, they made her get a job close to home. It's like she's getting what she deserves for not taking work seriously before. Thanks to that, I've been living peacefully without encountering Carla anymore. She always said she wouldn't date anyone who wasn't wealthy, but I didn't care. Since switching to remote work, I've been feeling lonely with no chance to meet new people. Amidst all that, I happened to meet someone I know from university. He was Carla's classmate and, like me, had been dragged into one of her forced parties. We didn't really talk during our college years, but we both know what it's like to be on the receiving end of Carla's dominating personality. As we talked, I started to like his simple and kind nature. Eventually, we began seeing each other. My consideration for purchasing the apartment was partly because I was thinking of marrying him. He's a regular office worker, mostly working from home as well. Since both of us wouldn't be affected by distance from the office, we discussed living together in a spacious, comfortable apartment. When Carla showed up at my apartment screaming about being pregnant with my husband's child, I honestly suspected him for a moment. Since Carla knew him, she wouldn't mistake him for a wealthy husband. But if he was wealthy, Carla might have taken him for me. Regardless, thanks to Carla, we got to know each other better and have now decided to get married. We want to live happily in our new apartment.
I'm taking him as the next company president. Look, I've just picked up $1,000 for the property division. My best friend, Samantha, said this with an ugly sneer I had never seen before. I could tell she was utterly mocking me. Next to her, my husband Ben was grinning stupidly. These two had been betraying me all along through their affair. Samantha probably seduced Ben away from me simply because he was the son of a big company's president. She always liked money, but I never imagined she would take my husband, her best friend's spouse. I lost my husband and my best friend all at once. Maybe I just don't have a good eye for people. I probably couldn't have done anything about this situation on my own. But I have a strong ally. I closed my eyes for a moment, took a deep breath, and when I opened them, I stared down my two enemies and signaled my counterattack. My name is Kathy Anderson, a 45-year-old part-time working housewife. I work at a company while raising my 8-year-old daughter Nicole and managing daily household chores. It's not unusual for someone like me to be a working housewife. However, I'm a bit different from ordinary people. Good morning, Kathy. I'm counting on you again today. Good morning, Father. Let's work hard again today. I work at a company owned by my father-in-law, who runs a medical device manufacturer with an annual turnover of $500 million. My husband Ben is his only son. I met Ben in college, and we started dating after he confessed his feelings for me. I lost my mother early, and my dad raised me alone. He was busy with work and didn't have much time for me. I like caring women like you, Kathy. After dating for a while, he told me this. It was well known among our college friends that Ben was the son of a big business owner. I never dreamed that I would end up marrying him. From the outside, it might seem like I had one big. However, my married life with Ben was anything but happy. Hey Ben, I want to start working. I married Ben right after graduating from college, but I was restless with too much free time. I could live without working, but coming from an ordinary family, that lifestyle didn't sit well with me. So I casually mentioned wanting to work, but you know, you're the wife of a big company's CEO's son. If someone like you starts working outside, won't it cause rumors that our company is in jeopardy? Be more aware. He said this with a disgusted look and didn't allow me to work. Before our marriage, Ben said he liked caring women. It turned out he meant women who would conveniently take care of him. After marriage, Ben treated me like a servant. I hated this situation, but my request to work was ignored. I spent my days increasingly sighing. You seem down lately. Father. One late night after work, my father-in-law saw me secretly feeling down in the corner of the living room and spoke to me. I inadvertently explained my situation to him. I see. I raised him alone, but I couldn't pay much attention to him. Maybe that's why he grew up to be somewhat selfish. I thought he was a bit too selfish, but I couldn't say that in front of my father-in-law. I gave a vague response, and my father-in-law laughed troubledly, then made a suggestion. If you don't mind, Kathy, would you like to work at our company? Really? Can I? When I expressed my joy, my father-in-law nodded with a smile. He said he would talk to Ben about it, so I gratefully accepted. After that, I worked at my father-in-law's company, got pregnant with Nicole, and gave birth safely. I had hoped that having a child would bring back the kind Ben I knew before, but unfortunately, that didn't happen. Ben continued to order me around as before. In addition to that, I was busy with childcare, work, and household chores, but this lifestyle suited me better than doing nothing. Despite being the son of a CEO, Ben barely worked and seemed complacent with his position. You're working so hard for nothing. What a waste of effort. He would regularly make such snide remarks while I was busy. Lately, I felt that Ben's attitude towards me was getting worse. My frustration was building up. Ben has been terrible lately. Just the other day, this happened. That's really his fault, isn't it? Samantha was my confidant. We had been friends since high school, and she always listened to my complaints. We usually met at the same cafe we'd been going to since high school when I talked to her. Samantha was my best friend and a very important person to me. Your husband is so caring and hardworking, it's unforgivable how he treats you so carelessly. Thanks, Samantha. Seeing Samantha get angry on my behalf, I smiled wryly. While drinking her usual orange juice, Samantha continued. But you know, he's always been like that. Huh? Samantha, have you met Ben before? Samantha momentarily looked surprised, then quickly returned to smiling and continued. I've only met him once at the wedding, but it's strange to talk like I know him well. I've always heard stories about him from you, so I guess I formed an image of him in my head. Oh, I see. Sorry, Samantha. I didn't realize I'd been complaining to you so much. It felt like Samantha was someone I knew well, as I had always vented to her about my issues. I apologized her. Samantha shook her head with a wry smile. No, it's okay. Don't worry about it, Kathy. Hey, do you want some cake? I feel like having something sweet. Oh, that sounds nice. Even after that, I found myself complaining about Ben, but Samantha didn't get fed up and kindly empathized with me. Lately, Ben had been saying unpleasant things to me often, but thanks to Samantha and my father-in-law, I managed to get by each day. However, that routine abruptly came to an end. Father, why? One day, suddenly, my father-in-law fell ill and passed away. I had been hoping for his recovery and had been diligently nursing him, but it seemed my wishes were in vain. Initially, he still appeared energetic, but as the days passed, he became frail and then he was gone. Grandpa. Nicole, who loved her grandfather dearly, looked sad. She had always come with me to visit and helped take care of him. On the other hand, her actual son, Ben, said, "You're going to take care of him, so I don't need to go, right?" He never visited even once and showed no sign of sadness even when his father passed away. I don't really get this stuff. I'll leave it all to you. Furthermore, he left all the arrangements for the funeral and the paperwork that followed to me. I managed with the help of my father-in-law's company's lawyer and the employees, but I couldn't help being dismayed by Ben's behavior even at such a time. He barely attended the funeral as the only son, and afterwards, he did not mourn and continued coming home late. I'm home. That day, too, Ben returned home late, and I looked at him with dismay as he entered the living room. It was just as Nicole had finished her bath and was getting ready for bed. His face was flushed, perhaps from drinking somewhere. Dad, you smell like alcohol. Nicole, like me, frowned and muttered. Ben, it's been only half a month since your father passed. Where are you going out every single day? I finally couldn't stand it anymore and asked him, but he just scowled unhappily. Where I go is my business, isn't it? Don't pry into everything. You don't have the right to tie me down. Even so, it's only been a short while since your father passed. So, I have to stay home all the time? Being around your gloomy face all the time would drive me crazy. His utterly unreasonable response made me snap back at him. When I wanted to start working, you told me to be aware of my responsibilities as the wife of a big company's CEO's son. How about you start acting like the son of a CEO yourself? What would people think if you just wander around outside right after your father's death? However, mid-sentence, Ben threw his bag at me. Fortunately, it missed both me and Nicole and fell to the floor. Ben glared at me furiously. Don't get cocky just because you're my wife. If you say something cheeky again, I won't let it go. With an angry face, he left the living room. Left behind were just Nicole and I, stunned. Mom, are you okay? Nicole, recovering sooner, looked at me with concern. I snapped out of it and smiled at her. I'm okay. I'm sorry, Nicole, you had a rough time, didn't you? It's not your fault, Mom. Even in such times, my kind daughter comforted me. If it weren't for Nicole, I might have broken down. Despite Nicole also grieving for her beloved grandfather, she still offered me comforting words. Maybe marrying Ben was a mistake, but becoming a family with my father-in-law and Nicole was a precious treasure I gained from this marriage. A few days later. Sigh. I had managed to settle the paperwork, and all that was left was to prepare for the month memorial for my father-in-law. It seemed like a good time to contact Samantha and vent a bit. Oh, a call from Ben. Ben, who was out again today, suddenly called. Hello. What's up? I have something to talk about. Come to the cafe near the station. His imperious tone almost made me sigh out loud, but thinking it would be more trouble to refuse, I headed to the designated place. This is the cafe you and Samantha often use, isn't it? The cafe we had been going to since high school looked old from the outside but served delicious food, and the atmosphere inside was calming and tasteful. It was quite surprising that flashy Ben knew this place, but as I entered, I was about to learn an astonishing fact. What? What did you just say? Ben, who had been waiting at a back table, thrust something at me as soon as I sat down. That's why I said we're getting married. I'm divorcing you. Ben smirked as he thrust the divorce papers at me. I was shocked, not because Ben wanted a divorce, but because the person he intended to marry was sitting next to him, and it was a shocking revelation. Sorry, Kathy. I'm taking your husband, okay? Samantha, my best friend, said this with a sarcastic tone. She casually entwined her arm with Ben's. Ben's dad has passed away, and all the paperwork is done, right? I thought it was a good opportunity to get all the troublesome stuff out of the way. Right, Ben? Samantha smiled, and Ben nodded back with a smile. Since when? Suppressing the quiver in my voice, I asked the two of them. Well, it might have been right after Nicole was born. I visited your house and saw Ben there. He said you hadn't been taking care of him, and it seemed he was quite pent up. Samantha spoke with a smug grin, a hideous smile I had never seen before. You should start preparing to leave. I'll let you stay in the house out of pity until you're ready to go. I'll be at Samantha's place, so call me when you're ready. Although I still had questions, the two left the divorce papers at the cafe and swiftly exited. I looked at the divorce papers, which only Ben had signed, and let out a small sigh. Then, I neatly folded the papers, tucked them into my bag, and pulled out my smartphone to contact someone. A few days later. Are you ready to leave? Ben returned home after a long absence. After that day, he really did move into Samantha's house and hadn't come back here once. In the meantime, I hurriedly finished certain preparations and called Ben yesterday. By the way, Nicole is not here right now. It wouldn't be right to involve her in the ugly conflict about to unfold among the adults. So, I had left Nicole with a close colleague from work who has children this morning. Nicole is very fond of her and gets along well with her colleague's children, so I think she's having a good time. I haven't been to this house in a while. It's always such a grand home. I can't believe I'll be living here now. A plain woman like you doesn't deserve a house like this. Samantha was in a good mood next to Ben. I didn't invite her, but she came along anyway. Even as she hurled insults at me, she wore a smile. It seemed she was thrilled about the prospect of becoming the wife of a CEO's son after my divorce from Ben. Please, have a seat. I led them to the living room, and they looked surprised. What the hell? Don't let strangers into my house. What, you've been cheating too? Fair game, then. In the living room sat a serious-looking man in a suit. He didn't bat an eyelid at their rude comments. Please, don't say such things. This man was someone I had invited, and certainly not a lover. As I took my seat, ignoring their petty taunts, I responded. So? Are you ready for the divorce? Yes. I have the divorce papers right here. As I presented the completed divorce forms, the two smirked. Pfft. At least you're prepared. Do you know what's coming next? You'll no longer be the wife of a CEO's son. You'll lose your money, your home, everything. What awaits you is a bleak future now that Ben has dumped you. Samantha gloated, but I calmly replied. Samantha, just one question. Why did you cheat with Ben? Isn't it obvious? Ben is the heir to a major company. Marrying him means I'll never have to worry about money. Hearing this, I realized in my heart. She had always been fond of money. During our student days, she was so devoted to her part-time jobs that her grades plummeted. Even as adults, I had noticed her greed for money, but since she was my best friend, I never reprimanded her. Looking back, maybe if I had spoken up then, things might not have come to this. But it was too late for anything now. Ben, having heard Samantha's words, shrugged exaggeratedly and wrapped his arm around her waist. Hey. You're after my money, aren't you? Oh, I do love you, too. Just as much as I love your money. Samantha laughed vulgarly and turned back to me. Then, as if taking out a wad of cash from her purse, she tossed it in front of me. I'm taking him as the next company president. Here, pick up $1,000 for the property division. You'll need it once you're divorced from him and have no money, so I'm generously giving you $1,000. What vulgar people! Their repugnant behavior made me grimace. As I pondered how to retort, the man in the suit next to me began to shake his shoulders. Then, suddenly, he burst into hearty laughter. What? Ben sounded deflated, and Samantha looked perplexed. Sorry. I couldn't help but laugh at how oblivious you are to your own situations. The man wiped tears from his eyes, pulled out a business card holder, and introduced himself while handing them his card. Pleased to meet you for the first time. I was counsel for the late President Anderson, Lawyer Hanson. A lawyer? Samantha's voice faltered. Clearly, she hadn't expected a lawyer to be present, and Ben's face was equally shocked. Then, Lawyer Hanson dropped a bombshell that almost made them jump out of their seats. You are Ben's mistress, Ms. Samantha Owen, was it? You seem to think that you'll be the next president's wife, but that's a huge misconception. The heir is actually the wife here. And he's unemployed. At Lawyer Hanson's words, their jaws dropped in disbelief, their faces stunned. Watching their expressions, I remembered something. When my father-in-law was still clear-headed in the hospital, he suddenly told me this. Kathy, divorce him after I'm gone. Ben is cheating on you. I was shocked by my father-in-law's words, but at the same time, it made sense. A few years ago, I found a woman's accessory in Ben's bag, along with a hotel receipt. It was clear he was cheating, as he would never buy me such a gift. Although the thought of divorce briefly crossed my mind, I couldn't leave my father-in-law, Daniel, in the care of Ben, who was always fooling around. Moreover, if Ben and I divorced, I would likely gain custody, which would mean Daniel and Nicole being separated. Daniel and Nicole get along so well, but sometimes I feel jealous. I didn't want to separate them, so I had turned a blind eye to the affair. At that time, I didn't suspect that Samantha was the other woman, nor did Daniel seem to know the specifics about the affair. When I told him, he looked shocked for a moment and then sighed heavily. I never thought I was forcing such hardships on you, Kathy. No, that's not it. It's also for Nicole's sake. I didn't want to be separated from you either. I love you just as much as Nicole does. Daniel, on the verge of tears, managed a smile. Then, with a determined look, he said something even more surprising. If you're willing, Kathy, I'd like to leave all my inheritance to you. What? I don't want him to have my inheritance. It seems that just as I had grown disillusioned with Ben, Daniel had long since given up on him. No, Father, I don't need any inheritance. Please, just stay healthy as long as you can. That's what I replied at the time, but it seems Daniel had already been making preparations. After he passed away, when I contacted Lawyer Hanson to handle various matters, I was informed that Daniel had prepared a will leaving everything to me. And so, all of Daniel's company and estate will belong to you, Kathy. The will that lawyer Hansen brought was in front of us. Just in case, the will given to them was a copy. And soon enough, that precaution proved necessary. I will never accept this. No sooner had he shouted this than he tore the will in half. Seeing the will torn in two, I secretly breathed a sigh of relief that I had made copies. If you're taking over the company, does that mean you become the president? The next president is supposed to be me. And you're just a housewife. Sure, you worked at Dad's company, but you were just a part-timer, you can't run a business. It was almost laughable that he didn't know. Instead of speaking out, I kept my composure and informed him of what he did not know. Just a part-timer? No, I am the head of the secretarial office. After getting married, I began working at Daniel's company. Initially, as Ben said, I was a part-timer, but loving the work, I dedicated myself and gained experience. My efforts were recognized, and I was hired as a full employee. I was promoted smoothly and eventually became the head of the secretarial office. The primary role of our office is to support the busy president. I've been watching the president's work up close for many years. Furthermore, Daniel had been preparing me to be his successor by letting me handle the president's duties in secret. Father-in-law had already laid the groundwork with the executives before he passed. The next president won't be you, who has just flitted about aimlessly, making no effort. It will be me, who has continued to work hard. Lawyer Hansen nodded in agreement. All the official procedures have already been completed. The only people who believe you are going to be the next president are the two of you. Ben's face gradually lost all color. His eyes darted around, and when he glanced down at the torn will on the table, he stared intently at the written words. It was a statement of rejection from Daniel to his son. I leave nothing of my inheritance to Ben, my only blood relative. Disowning his son was no small matter. Ben had lived so selfishly that he drove his own father to this point. This outcome was Ben's own doing. I returned the $1,000 that had been thrown at me earlier to the two, who were now pale-faced. You two will be in trouble without money now, won't you? Ben won't be the next president, and after being divorced and kicked out of this house by me, you'll lose everything. So here, take this back. Use it for living expenses. At my words, Samantha's face turned bright red with anger. This is no joke. I will never accept this. Samantha slapped away my hand as I tried to return the $1,000. Her face contorted with rage as she lunged at lawyer Hansen. Ben is the only blood relative. He's supposed to inherit the company. There's no way I'll allow her to take over the company and inherit everything. Samantha's face was red-hot with anger. To her, lawyer Hansen responded with a look of disbelief. You say you won't accept it, but you're the only ones who don't. The legal procedures have been followed, and the company's executives unanimously support Kathy as the new president. Personally, I also think Kathy being the president is for the best. Lawyer Hansen glanced at Ben. I am also the company's legal advisor. Ben, have you ever met me? No, right? You mistook me for Kathy's lover. Lawyer Hansen let out a heavy sigh. If you had been serious about your duties as the next president, we would have met many times. You haven't done any training to be president. It's absurd to think you could be one. If that happened, the company Daniel left behind would be ruined. Such a big responsibility is impossible for an incompetent person like you. I'm not a business manager, but even I can see that. I was a bit startled by lawyer Hansen's blunt words. Glancing at his face, I saw a trace of anger. Lawyer Hansen had owed a great deal to Daniel. When he was struggling after starting his law firm, Daniel had given him work to keep his business afloat. Later, Daniel appointed him as the company's legal advisor, and he always said he owed Daniel a great debt. The contempt Ben continued to show towards his father probably angered lawyer Hansen. Now, with reality harshly laid out before him by lawyer Hansen, Ben slumped weakly in his chair. His complexion went from pale to paper white. Still unable to accept the situation, Samantha tried to grab Lawyer Hansen. I caught her hand to stop her. Let go of me. You can't even train your husband properly, you loser. Don't touch me. Instead of retaliating against her foul language, I simply stated the facts. If you harm this man even slightly, the company staff waiting outside will come running. What? When did they? For this meeting, the board members suggested having a third party present in case something unexpected happened. The company staff I had asked for help includes people who practice karate and judo, all skilled in their arts. After the two entered the house, I had them wait discreetly in front. Upon learning this, Samantha's face paled, and she quietly sat down. It seemed she realized she had no chance of winning. With their initial bravado gone, I decided to deliver the final blow. I will be suing you both for damages. Lawyer Hansen and I are already discussing this matter. At the mention of a lawsuit, the two, who had been deflated, suddenly looked up. Then, Samantha tried to cling to me. I'm so sorry. Please, forgive me. I truly regret it and will apologize as much as it takes to satisfy you. You will forgive me, right? After all, we are best friends, aren't we? I pushed away Samantha's hands, attempting to cling to me, and replied with a cold voice. No, I'm cutting ties with you. I absolutely refuse to be friends with someone who would steal another person's husband for money. It's repulsive, so don't ever pretend to be my friend again. At that moment, Samantha's face fell into despair, and then Ben knelt down, making an absurdly inappropriate suggestion. I'm sorry for everything. Let's start over. What? It would be too sad for Nicole if we divorced, wouldn't it? His words ignited a sudden rage inside me. How dare he use our daughter as a reason for his selfishness? Nicole asks me every day, when will you divorce Papa? Huh? Nicole is already 8 years old. She's not an ignorant child. She, like me and your father, has long since grown weary of your selfish behavior. Indeed, Nicole, like Daniel and myself, had lost all familial love for Sean due to his constant self-centered actions. Seeing the pain on my face, she repeatedly expressed her wish for me to divorce and find relief. It took time, but I am finally able to fulfill Nicole's wish. You no longer have a family. Those who were your family have all turned their backs on you. I will divorce you, so live happily with Samantha. Isn't that what you wanted? These words seemed to be the last straw for Ben, who collapsed in despair. Samantha also sat down on the floor, covering her face with her hands and sobbing. Later, I tried to get the two of them out of the house, but they were too busy wallowing in despair and crying, and wouldn't leave. So, I called on the company staff waiting outside for help to finally get them out. This house, too, was left to me by Daniel. The ownership has already been transferred to me, and it is no longer theirs. I plan to continue living here with my beloved daughter and the memories of Daniel. Thanks to Lawyer Hansen, the process for the damage claims was smoothly completed. Ben had to sell his belongings and still had to borrow from consumer finance to cover the rest. Considering he has no decent job history, I wonder what kind of shady consumer finance would lend to him, but as long as he pays the compensation, it's none of my concern. Samantha had exhausted her savings to pay the damages and even tried to borrow from friends. However, once her friends learned of the affair, they all cut ties with her. Among them were mutual friends of mine and Samantha. They were all disgusted with her and concerned for me. From what I heard from those friends, Ben, having nowhere else to go and no money, had moved into Samantha's place. However, Samantha blamed him for her troubles and they frequently fought, which once led to their neighbors calling the police. Eventually, Samantha kicked Ben out, and I have no knowledge of his whereabouts after that. Wherever he is, it has nothing to do with me. As for Samantha, her struggles to repay the damages led her into financial difficulty, and like Ben, she ended up dealing with predatory lenders. Her fate seems as miserable as his. Meanwhile, I have taken over as president of the company Daniel left me, and despite the education he provided, the job is quite challenging. I manage with the support of other employees. What soothes my busy days is my dear daughter. Mom, welcome home. Good job at work today. I'm home, Nicole. Thanks for always welcoming me. Are you hungry? I'll make your favorite omelet today. Yay! I love your omelet, Mom. Just seeing Nicole's smile makes all the fatigue vanish. I know the days ahead will still be tough, but with Nicole by my side, I'm sure I'll be fine. And in heaven, I know Daniel is watching over us too. To ensure he can rest peacefully, I will do my utmost to fulfill my duties.
An old hag like you isn't even womanly anymore. I'm divorcing you, so get lost. With a mocking smile, Patrick said to me. We were in the hospital where Patrick was admitted, and I had come to take care of him. Despite having devotedly supported Patrick through his illness, this is the thanks I get. Patrick betrayed me with a calm face. Reflecting back, I've always been treated horribly by Patrick. Yet, why have I endured it all this time? There's no benefit in being married to such a despicable person. While thinking this, I slowly began to speak. I won't let Patrick have his way anymore. Holding a burning resolve quietly in my heart, I faced Patrick head-on. My name is Amy Hansen, a 45-year-old working housewife. My family consists of my son, Ryan, and my husband, Patrick. Ryan just started high school this year and is a very kind and good child. I think I did well raising him. My husband, Patrick, used to be quite handsome. It may sound strange to call my own husband handsome, but he was very popular back then. I fell in love with Patrick at first sight, competed with my rivals at the time, and snatched away the role of his wife. However, the handsome part is a thing of the past. Hey, isn't there something to snack on? Now in his 40s, Patrick has gained weight significantly since Ryan was born. And now he has a substantial belly. The reason for his weight gain was his infidelity. Patrick cheated on me while I was busy raising Ryan, claiming he felt lonely. His affair partner was a foodie, and accompanying her led him to gain a lot of weight quickly. I'm divorcing you. Wait, please. Give me another chance. Upon discovering the affair, I intended to divorce Patrick. However, Patrick didn't want to part from Ryan, who was just born. And he swore never to cheat again. For my part, I thought it cruel for Ryan to be without a father, so I hesitated on the divorce. Since then, Patrick hasn't cheated, but his overweight figure remains. He promised to diet when we were rebuilding our marriage, but he has yet to fulfill that promise. I've resigned myself to him probably staying this way for life. To me, it doesn't matter whether Patrick is fat or thin. However, I wish he would stop leading an unhealthy lifestyle. The reason Patrick has never lost weight is his persistent unhealthy habits, which he refuses to give up despite my warnings. How will he manage if he collapses? I've told him numerous times, but Patrick doesn't listen. I wonder if my admonitions are just a waste of breath, as my size and Patrick's fat keep increasing. I'm a working housewife. And the company I've been with since graduating from college has become significantly busier recently. In the past few years, our sales have greatly increased. And plans to establish a branch office have emerged. This has led to an increase in my workload, making my days overwhelmingly busy. But I still need to prepare meals, right? For Patrick's health, I make time to cook meals despite being busy. Yet, all my efforts seem in vain. I failed the health checkup. I have to go for a retest next month. What, again? Patrick has failed his annual health checkup almost every year. He reported this year's failure with an annoyed expression. Hey, where's the result sheet from the health checkup? Show it to me. Thinking it best to be informed, I asked Patrick for it. However, he refused with a reluctant look. Why? It's not necessary. I'll just go for the retest, get treated, and that'll be the end of it. But, what if something happens? Huh? You know, you always make a big deal out of everything. Don't fuss over such things. Seriously. Patrick just muttered complaints and, in the end, did not share the results of his health checkup with me. From that day on, I made sure to prepare health-conscious meals. But Patrick grimaced heavily at the sight of the food served. I can't feel like I've eaten with such bland food. After complaining about the food I made and leaving most of it untouched, he would buy cup noodles or junk food and eat that instead. It would be okay, in small amounts. But the volume he eats at one time makes me wonder where it all goes in his body. At this rate, he might need a retest next year as well. Hey, I'm not saying stop eating. But how about reducing the amount? It's bad for your health? Mom's right. Aren't you eating a bit too much? Even Ryan, who is growing and needs food, was taken aback by how much and how heavily flavored the food Patrick was consuming was. By the way, Ryan happily eats the healthy meals I prepare with a smile. However, it seems even our son's advice doesn't reach Patrick. Shut up. I bought it with my salary, you have no right to tell me what to do. Patrick yelled at us in frustration. Ryan and I continued to patiently warn him, but each time, Patrick would snap back. And eventually, we stopped saying anything. Then, one day, this happened. What? My husband was taken to the hospital. I received a sudden call from Patrick's workplace that he had collapsed. Although I was at work, I rushed to the hospital where Patrick was taken. According to the doctor, Patrick had suffered a heart attack and needed emergency surgery. Still shaken, I signed the consent form. The surgery was a success, and Patrick survived. I breathed a sigh of relief. But it was probably Patrick's unhealthy lifestyle that caused the heart attack. The doctor also mentioned he was a bit overweight. It was all Patrick's own doing. I thought he might reflect and change his lifestyle going forward, but it seems I was too optimistic. Hey, could you buy me some sweet juice? And I want some chips too. I'm sick of the bland hospital food. Once he regained consciousness and felt better, Patrick tried to get me to buy him snacks. I refused while feeling astounded. That's impossible. You had a heart attack because of your unhealthy lifestyle. You need to change that. However, Patrick lashed out at me in anger. I'm a patient, you know. Saying such terrible things, you're the worst. Even after that, Patrick continued to order me around. He thinks it's natural for me to obey because he is a patient. I would accommodate him within reason, but I couldn't accept his requests about food. When I refused, Patrick would get furious. Sometimes, he even threw things at me. I was becoming increasingly disheartened, but Patrick, having undergone a forced diet during his hospital stay, was in a much better mood. Hospitalization isn't so bad. He said this nonchalantly while looking in the mirror, unaware of my struggles. The semblance of his past handsomeness had returned, and recently, he's been bragging about how female nurses and other patients often talk to him. Sigh. I'm tired. Not just work and house chores, but also nursing Patrick. My days are overwhelmingly busy. At night, finally taking a break, I sat in the living room chair and involuntarily sighed. Hey, Mom, I'll take care of the household chores from now on. Then, Ryan, looking concerned, said that. Huh? That's okay, Ryan. You have club activities, right? There's no match for a while, and lately it's been all voluntary practice. Plus, it's better to learn some household chores for when I get married in the future, right? Ryan's offer to help was appreciated. But what truly warmed my heart was his mention of preparing for when he gets married. Patrick has always stubbornly believed that housework is a woman's job, and has hardly ever participated in it himself. Despite growing up with such a father, Ryan has turned out to be a wonderful son. All right. Maybe I'll take you up on that offer then. As I said this, Ryan smiled broadly and nodded. I thought that with Ryan around, we could surely get through anything. But life isn't always so sweet. One day, as I went to visit Patrick as usual. What? There was a nurse with her uniform undone on Patrick's bed. A young female nurse screamed briefly, and I was stunned. The nurse's name tag read, Maggie Owen. In a flustered manner, Patrick hustled the nurse out of the room and then said with a sigh, "Give me a heads up before you come." No, I did call. But who was that just now? What were you doing? I knew the answer without asking, but I asked anyway. When Patrick had cheated many years ago, he swore he'd never do it again. I had thought Patrick had reflected on his actions since he hadn't cheated recently. But perhaps, he hadn't cheated simply because no one was interested in him due to his weight? While I was in shock, Patrick gave a smug smile. What, you ask? It's an affair. I've started to get popular again since I lost weight. Man, I don't have enough bodies to enjoy this. But you promised you wouldn't cheat. Then, with a scornful laugh, Patrick hurled these words at me. That was in the past, right? An old hag like you isn't even womanly anymore. I'm divorcing you, so get lost. How could you? Then, Patrick dropped another bombshell. Actually, she's pregnant with my child. As a man, I have to take responsibility, right? He spoke grandly about responsibility, but what about his responsibility towards our family? I started to say this, but then closed my mouth. Instead, I murmured quietly. I see, what a pity. Well, I'll go get the divorce papers now.
Yeah.
I'd appreciate that. Stunned, I went straight to the city hall to pick up the divorce papers. After getting Patrick to sign them at the hospital, I spoke while holding back tears. I wish you happiness. I'm leaving that house.
Yeah.
That house is mine, so it's only natural for you to leave. Also, I'll give you custody. The kid prefers you, and his girlfriend would hate dealing with a child around. I didn't react to Patrick's words and quietly put the divorce papers in my bag. Patrick watched me, seemingly enjoying my distress. I should have done this sooner. You've been really cheeky lately. You've been quite presumptuous all this time, haven't you? This is what you get. You're getting divorced because it's all your own doing. I had fallen in love with Patrick and married him. Perhaps he had been so awful because he was confident in being liked by me. But that ends today. I left Patrick's belongings in the hospital room and walked out without looking back. 1 month after divorcing Patrick, Ryan and I had moved out of that house, and now we live just the two of us. With all the paperwork settled, Ryan and I were finally enjoying a day off with nothing else to do. You look tired, Mom. I'll make lunch today. Really? Thank you, I'm looking forward to it. Ryan and I shared a peaceful laugh together. At that moment, Patrick unexpectedly called. Hello, hello? I answered the phone, tilting my head, wondering what he could possibly want. This was the first time Patrick had called since the divorce. I really didn't want to answer the phone, but I couldn't ignore it if it was an emergency. Then, I heard Patrick's pained voice on the other end. Hey, they told me to pay the rest of the surgery bill. Didn't you pay it? I sighed in exasperation at such a matter. I haven't paid. Why should I, now that we're divorced, pay your surgery bills? Indeed, I had paid all of Patrick's surgery and hospital fees. Patrick always found it troublesome to sign up for insurance, and had no hospital insurance whatsoever. That's why I paid out of my own pocket. It was a significant amount of money, but at that time, Patrick was still my family. And I had no complaints about paying. However, Patrick cruelly betrayed our family and pushed for a divorce. At that point, he was no longer my family, so there was no need for me to pay. When I told Patrick this, he continued in a flustered tone from the other end of the phone. "You were paying such a huge amount? The amount written on the receipt is quite substantial." "Yes. Because you were my family. Of course, I'd pay that much for family. But now, you and I are no longer family." Then, Patrick raised his voice in panic. "You know my family. You know I don't have that much savings." "Of course, I know. You always spent money recklessly." Indeed, since his affair years ago, Patrick had become more extravagant in his spending. I had warned him several times, but he would just get angry, saying not to complain about the money he earned. He wasn't that interested in food before, but after being influenced by his affair partner, he continued to spend a lot of money on meals even after they split up. There were also golf clubs he gave up on after 3 days, and an expensive camera collecting dust. Just to name a few. Patrick was just recklessly spending his salary without planning. Eventually, I gave up even trying to comment on how he spent his money. "Then, you know I can't pay such a large sum. Arrange for the treatment costs and come to the hospital." "Where are you now?" I asked Maggie to go to the house, but she said there was no one there. Maggie was Patrick's affair partner. I was truly glad that Ryan and I had left the house. I absolutely didn't want to meet the affair partner who had caused us so much pain. In response to the frantic Patrick, I replied very calmly. "Why would I tell you? Right now, Ryan and I are enjoying a very peaceful life. I absolutely refuse to let you disrupt this peace." Since divorcing Patrick and leaving that house, Ryan's face has been brighter. "I actually always wanted you to divorce Dad. You didn't seem happy with him, and he was always so nasty to me." As I listened to him, it turned out that Patrick had been threatening Ryan that he wouldn't pay for his college if he didn't obey him. Ryan is a kind boy, but lately, he had been speaking out more against Patrick. Patrick probably didn't like that. "If you defy your parents anymore, it won't end well for you." Patrick had been trying to control him by saying such things when I wasn't around. Hearing this made me feel so angry at Patrick that I almost felt dizzy. He said such awful things to his own son. I used to think Ryan would be lonely without his father if we divorced. But that was a huge misunderstanding. Continuing to live with Patrick was the cause of our misery. I deeply regret not divorcing him sooner. If we had, we could have avoided so many unhappy days. But now, we are free from Patrick. I won't let him take these days of freedom away from us. I am ready to do whatever it takes to protect Ryan and myself. I will never tell you where Ryan and I are. With a firm resolve, I spoke strongly to Patrick. Silence followed, but eventually, I could hear Patrick sniffling. Could he be crying? It's his own fault, and he doesn't even have the right to cry. I almost blurted out those words, but I swallowed them hastily. It's probably useless to say this now. Please, pay for the medical treatment. Patrick pleaded with me, his voice tinged with tears. His voice was so irritating that I frowned deeply as I responded. That's why I'm not going to pay. We're divorced. Do you not care what happens to me? You married me because you loved me, right? Patrick raised a cry of anguish. Indeed, I had loved Patrick. He used to be so handsome, and I fell for him at first sight. Initially, it was his looks that I fell for, but as I got to know him better, I grew to like his smooth handling of women and his kind personality. Looking back, Patrick has always been popular with women, which is probably why he treated me so smoothly. His kindness was just a tactic to make himself more appealing to women. You looked sad when I signed the divorce papers, right? You still have feelings for me, don't you? If you pay for the treatment, I'll divorce Maggie and remarry you. So? What nonsense are you talking about? Huh? Patrick made a foolish sound. My love for Patrick is a thing of the past. After Ryan was born and Patrick cheated, my love for him disappeared. The reason I looked sad at that time was because I was utterly dismayed by my own foolishness for not seeing through Patrick's cheating. It was not because I still had feelings for him. Patrick claimed he cheated because I was too busy with Ryan and he felt lonely. However, Patrick never helped me with housework or childcare after Ryan was born. Once, when I asked him to help even a little, he disdainfully said, "You can't even handle that? You're a failure as a mother." During a period when I was nervous from the busy days and unfamiliar with childcare, Patrick's words were the final blow. His cheating came to light shortly after that. Could he really think I still had feelings for him after all that? I stopped loving you the day you cheated 14 years ago. It seems Patrick is stunned over the phone. Why? How could you? How could I? After you did something so awful, how could you ask why? You really don't understand other people's feelings. If you don't love me, why didn't you divorce me sooner? There are several reasons for that. First, divorcing with young Ryan was too risky. Also, I believed it was better for Ryan to have a father. Since the divorce drama, I had no love left for Patrick. We had just been living together as cohabitants. Over the years, I developed a familial affection for Patrick. I couldn't forgive the past, but I thought staying together as a family might be one option. However, Patrick cheated again right before my eyes that day. It doesn't matter who Patrick falls in love with, I won't be jealous anymore. I am angry because Patrick broke his promises. He broke his promises and abandoned his role as Ryan's father. I feel intense anger about that. I have no lingering feelings for someone like you. Whatever happens to you, I don't care. Patrick was at a loss for words after my answer. Are you just going to stay silent? I was enjoying my rare day off. I don't have time to deal with you anymore, so I'm hanging up, okay? As I said this, Patrick hurriedly spoke up. Wait. Look. You can't raise Ryan alone, right? He's going to college soon, and you'll need money. You'll be in trouble without me, won't you? Hearing such utterly misguided words, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. What are you laughing at? Over the phone, Patrick raised his voice in anger. It seems he really doesn't understand anything about me. To such a Patrick, I decided to reveal a certain truth. Did you know that I've been earning a higher salary than you for quite some time? Unlike you, I haven't been wasting my money, so I have a decent amount of savings. I'm not struggling financially at all, so no worries. What? That's why I'm not troubled by your absence. I've also got an education insurance for Ryan. Don't worry about his college expenses. Even without you, there's absolutely no problem. Yes, I have been consistently appreciated at the company I've worked at since graduating from college. And I've received a salary that reflects my contributions. Since I had to raise Ryan alone, I ended up taking a longer maternity leave, which delayed my promotions compared to my peers. Still, by steadily working hard, I have now been promoted to assistant manager. I had informed Patrick about my promotion, but he assumed that because I am a woman, I couldn't possibly be earning a significant salary. Busy with work, huh? That's just a woman's job, right? As a man, I'm definitely busier. Don't use your job as an excuse to neglect housework. When I was promoted and became busier, There were times I couldn't cook and we had to rely on takeout. That's when Patrick said those words to me. No matter how much I explained my job or how hard I tried to communicate my struggles, Patrick would only laugh mockingly. The reason I could endure it was because of the support from my gentle Ryan. It wasn't because of Patrick. Rather, Patrick was a burden to me. It was only after the divorce that I realized this. The situation had become like this because of Patrick. But perhaps my own insensitivity had also contributed to the deterioration of the situation. However, I won't make that mistake again. You haven't been contributing much to the living expenses in recent years, have you? Didn't you ever wonder how we could continue living as usual? It's obvious, because I was earning the money. Even without you, we have no problems at all. Then, Patrick muttered with a trembling voice. But, what about Ryan? Without a father, he must be feeling lonely, right? What will his future partner's parents think if they find out he doesn't have a father? For Ryan's future, it's better if I'm around, right? I couldn't believe he was still saying such things, and I instinctively held my head in dismay. Then, Ryan, who had been listening to the conversation with Patrick the whole time, gestured that he wanted to speak on the phone. Are you sure? I'm sure. There's something I want to say to Dad. I nodded and handed the smartphone to Ryan. Hello, Dad? Ryan. You tell your mom, too. She needs me, right? However, without a pause, Ryan responded firmly. No, we're not struggling at all. What? To me, Mom is my only parent. Dad and I are just connected by blood. I even dislike that, but there's nothing I can do about it. Also, you mentioned something about marriage partners. Having a parent like you would be more of a disadvantage to me. Calmly, Ryan spoke words that negated Patrick. His face was the picture of serenity, showing no intent of getting back at Patrick. He was simply stating what he thought, in a composed manner. I'm really glad Mom divorced you. Thanks to that, I'm very happy now. If there was ever talk of Mom remarrying you, I would do everything to stop it. Because that wouldn't make Mom happy. Ryan's cool words seemed to have left Patrick completely speechless. Could you please not get involved with me and Mom anymore? You should just be happy with your affair partner. Wait, Ryan. I still want to be your dad. Then why did you cheat? This is all your own doing, Dad. You brought this on yourself. I don't think of you as a father anymore. You're unnecessary in my and Mom's lives. Faced with such a clear rejection, I couldn't help but give a wry smile. I never expected Ryan to reject Patrick so completely. I took the phone from Ryan and had my final say to Patrick. So, do you understand? Just like Ryan said, don't involve yourself with us ever again. If you show up in front of us, I'll consult a lawyer and take appropriate action. Patrick didn't utter a word. I sighed softly and hung up the phone. Later, I heard that Patrick had borrowed money from a consumer finance service to pay the remaining surgery and hospital bills. If he had no money, he could have discussed a payment plan with the hospital or found a better way. Patrick's thoughtless actions reaffirmed my decision to divorce him. After the moving process settled down a bit, I took a break and then hired a lawyer to claim compensation for the affair. Just divorcing over an affair wasn't enough for me. Patrick apparently hadn't expected to be sued for compensation. He was quite difficult with the lawyer. Then, we'll go to court if we have to. Please tell him I'm prepared for that. After I told the lawyer this, Patrick seemed to have agreed quietly to the compensation demand. It was at this time that Patrick finally told his parents about our divorce and asked them for financial help to pay the compensation. However, upon hearing this, Patrick's parents were furious. They said they no longer considered him a son and declared they were cutting ties with him. Later, I received a call from my mother-in-law. We've cut ties with him. But we don't want to lose our connection with you and Ryan. Even though you're divorced, would you come and visit us again? Yes, of course. I'll bring Ryan to visit again. Patrick's parents are very kind and good people. We live far away, but they continue to support us. Ryan also wants to see his grandparents, and we plan to visit them soon. Patrick, disowned by his own parents, borrowed more money from consumer finance to pay the compensation. Currently, he is struggling just to pay the interest. I think he might declare bankruptcy eventually, but whatever happens to him is none of my concern. Patrick, whose savings went into the negative, managed to leave the hospital. But soon after, he fell ill again. After our separation, his unhealthy lifestyle worsened. Incidentally, he has broken up with his affair partner. I also filed a claim for compensation against her, but the lawyer told me something interesting. She said she'd broken up with your ex-husband and asked to be forgiven for the compensation claim because the pregnancy was a lie. That doesn't matter. I will pursue the compensation claim. Understood, I'll pass that on. So, I ruthlessly pursued the compensation claim against the affair partner too. She had lied about being pregnant thinking it would lead to my divorce with Patrick. She got her wish. But she probably never expected that Patrick would be so broke he couldn't even pay for surgery. Apparently, she had been fired from the hospital for having an inappropriate relationship with a patient during her duty, and is struggling financially because her job search is going poorly. However, that is none of my business. Eventually, she managed to gather the money to pay the compensation, probably using consumer finance as well. Well, I don't care for the details and don't want to know. After confirming the compensation payment was deposited, I breathed a sigh of relief. Thus, my tumultuous days came to an end. Currently, Ryan and I are living peaceful and happy lives. Wary of Patrick and the vengeful affair partner, I chose a highly secure apartment for our new home. Just to be safe, we keep in touch with the in-laws and are informed about Patrick's current situation to the extent they know. After paying the compensation, Patrick sold his house to cover his debts and is now living a lonely life in an apartment. Though he initially lost weight, his unhealthy lifestyle quickly brought him back to his previous state, and he was hospitalized again, looking emaciated rather than thin. He appears much older than his actual age, in his 40s. Well, whatever happens to him, it's completely irrelevant to us. Mom, I have something to discuss about university. Do you have time now? Yes, of course. Ryan has recently started to think seriously about his future. The divorce turmoil was hard on him, but now he is living very energetically. Since the divorce, I have more free time, almost more than I know what to do with. I'm thinking of starting a new hobby with my spare time. Having barely had any personal time before, just imagining it makes me feel excited. All right, let's make today another great day. Today, like every other, I am dedicated to working and taking care of the household for myself and Ryan. Imagining the fun future awaiting us, I smiled. You understand, right? Divorce, it's divorce. Being with you is just boring. I was speechless and dumbfounded. I suspected infidelity, but I never dreamed I'd receive a divorce paper like this. Why? I prefer younger women to an old hag like you. That's all there is to it. Hearing this left me speechless. There was only one thing I could say. Thank you for everything. I thanked Kevin. Then, I hugged Nathan. I had a faint suspicion that Kevin was cheating. So, I was ready to discuss divorce. However, that should be discussed between us two, not in front of a child. Moreover, bringing his mistress to our home was unthinkable. My patience finally snapped. If that's how it's going to be, I'll fight this through to the end. You will be alone crying and regretting this decision in no time, Kevin. I gave Kevin a stern look. My name is Rachel Hansen. I currently work at an interior decor sales company. I have always loved interiors, and I have no major complaints about my job. In my personal life, I married Kevin when I was 31, and we were blessed with a son, Nathan. So, my life seemed to be going well. But in reality, it isn't. Because I have a significant problem. Kevin, who runs the company I work for, lacks management skills. That would be one thing, but recently, it seems he has been cheating. I wanted to build a happy family. Maybe it's better to divorce now. After 13 years of marriage, at 44, I am at a crossroads in life. Though I am considering divorce now, I never thought about it when I got married. In fact, meeting Kevin was fate, or so I thought. We met when I got a job at a bank right after high school graduation. It was during the recession. And being able to get a job with just a high school diploma was fortunate. Anyway, I was grateful to have a job and was devoted to my career. A few years into my job, Kevin first visited the bank. I have a matter to discuss about the company's account. Yes, of course. I responded as usual, in a business-like manner, without any special emotion. Yet, for some reason, Kevin praised me. Thank you for handling it so politely. Kevin thanked politely and left. An oddly neat person. That's all I thought at the time. However, a few days later, on a Sunday, I casually stopped by an interior decor store and ran into Kevin again. Oh? From the bank.
Ah.
The other day. I said reflexively. Then, Kevin looked uneasy. Did I do something wrong? No, today is purely private. I'm looking for a table for my home. Oh, I see. With that, Kevin smiled, and his expression softened. After that, Kevin became quite talkative. He discussed various store products, and that kind of sales talk usually annoys me. But at that time, I didn't mind. Perhaps because we both loved interiors. As we talked more, I found myself attracted to Kevin. Eventually, I started visiting the store on weekends, and before I knew it, I married Kevin. After getting married, I quit the bank to become a full-time housewife. Kevin's store handled expensive items, and he seemed to be doing well, so I thought. However, I soon discovered a shocking fact. A few months after we got married, Kevin asked me to visit the store. He needed help organizing the warehouse, but as soon as I entered, I gasped. What is this? What do you mean? It's just inventory. Inventory? There's so much of it. The warehouse was filled with expensive foreign interiors, piled up like mountains. Something was wrong. I hurriedly checked the store's ledgers. As expected, the store's management was a mess. Unnecessary purchasing of expensive interiors, most of which remained unsold. The store was running in the negative. I looked back through the ledgers. The losses started about 2 years ago. When asked why, it turned out that was when Kevin had taken over the store. Before that, his late grandfather managed it. In other words, Kevin lacked management skills. Realizing this, I hurriedly tried to rectify the management. I convinced Kevin to give up selling luxury interiors and brought back custom-made products. Are we handling custom-made products again? Isn't it just a time-consuming hassle with clients? Kevin frowned as if the idea was a nuisance. It takes time, but it's easier to make a profit than stocking unsold luxury interiors. But, for now, until we resolve the deficits, Let's go back to the methods that used to work well. Of course, there's no guarantee it will succeed. However, we live in a small town in the countryside. Many of the residents have lived here since Kevin's grandfather's time, and they are still here. If we could win back the old customers. With that potential solution in mind, I continued to support Kevin. I was managing the store my way. In the end, despite Kevin's complaints, we managed to turn the store around. Still, it's not like we were massively profitable. We just barely escaped deficit operations. Anyway, we need to make the next move. If left to Kevin alone, his lax management would bankrupt the store in no time. It would leave our employees lost and threaten their livelihood. After much thought, I decided to utilize my experience from my banking days. From today, I'll handle the store's administration. Please leave all the back-end work to me. Huh? Then what am I supposed to do? You should focus on dealing with customers as the president. You're good at sales, so let your sales skills shine. Kevin is persuasive. So, if he focused on sales, he could produce results. This was indeed the right move. Kevin started securing contracts one after another. He also began leasing the luxury interiors stored in the warehouse. Coupled with Kevin's sales efforts, the business performance soared. We quickly regained the store's former glory. I thought this would stabilize the management. But just when I thought so, Kevin suggested something outrageous. The work has increased, so I think we should hire more staff. I agreed with that opinion. But the next moment, I was taken aback. For starters, I'm thinking of making my mom an executive. Huh? Your mother? What? Do you have a problem with that? Kevin twisted his mouth. I stuttered in response. Lately, more people have been visiting the store. And there are more requests for leases and custom-made products. So, I had always thought of increasing the number of salespeople and sales representatives. I assumed Kevin thought the same. I gently tried to object. How about we increase the number of sales or sales representatives before adding executives? But my mom wants to help out at the store. Kevin's father passed away a long time ago. Meaning, his mother was living alone. Is it because she has too much time on her hands? Or did the improved performance dazzle her with the sight of money? Either way, she's not the right person for the company. I tried everything to dissuade Kevin from hiring his mother. But right after that, it was discovered I was pregnant. Seizing the opportunity, his mother approached me. It must be tough working while pregnant. I can work instead during that period. Mother, do you have any work experience? Don't worry. I worked before I was married. That was how many years ago? I couldn't bring myself to say that. Reluctantly, I responded. I'll do my best as much as I can. But my mother-in-law wasn't amused. She started spreading rumors to relatives and neighbors. My daughter-in-law is greedy for money. She wormed her way into my son's company. She's really shameless. Indeed, money is important, but I was just trying to fix the company's deficit. I wasn't working because I wanted money. When I argued that, my mother-in-law replied. Huh? Are you belittling Kevin? No, that's not what I meant. A wife should support her husband. Don't say unnecessary things and just keep quiet. I had no choice but to be dumbfounded by such remarks. As my delivery approached, I eventually had to leave my job for childbirth. Inevitably, my mother-in-law entered the company. I had a lot I wanted to say, but I decided to stay quiet. Sometime later, I gave birth to Nathan. After several years of raising him, I returned to work. However, it was too late. The store's management had deteriorated while I was away. Of course, I did everything I could before taking a break from work. So, the sales were not bad. The problem was the financial statements. Despite robust sales, the financial statements were terrible. The reason was none other than Kevin and my mother-in-law. They had been excessively spending the company's expenses. It wasn't embezzlement, but their spending was quite dubious. When I suggested tightening up, my mother-in-law immediately started complaining. Such impudence for just a daughter-in-law. The store is a business. Being a daughter-in-law has nothing to do with it.
Ah.
Right. Then, I'll say it. A regular employee shouldn't talk back to an executive. I closed my mouth at her words. I am treated as a director in name only. So, I'm not a regular employee. I looked at Kevin, hoping he would say something. Why are you so flustered? Aren't you tired from parenting? Yes, because you don't help. I meant it as a sharp retort. But it seemed to irritate Kevin. He raised his voice in annoyance. What's with that tone? If it's so hard, just quit your job. That's. If I quit the company now, it would surely go bankrupt. I must avoid that for Nathan's sake. As I remained silent, Kevin laughed triumphantly. Then, smirking, he said, "If you don't like it, just shut up and do as I say." Understood. To protect the company, I had no choice but to continue working. I decided to silently follow Kevin and the others. Meanwhile, Nathan started elementary school. By that time, he became less dependent. Thanks to that, I could focus on my work. However, the company's management didn't improve. Of course, the reason was Kevin and my mother-in-law's wasteful spending. I also started to worry about Kevin neglecting Nathan. He didn't show up for Nathan's parents-teacher interview or any other school events. Moreover, there were times he didn't even come home. This might be infidelity. Problems are piling up. I had many such thoughts. But confronting Kevin wouldn't reveal the truth. You know about the redevelopment near the station, right? I'm just working hard thinking about opening a new store there. And that's why you can't come home? Isn't that strange? It's not strange. I'm just that busy. That was all he would say to dodge the issue. Then, one day, when I came home from work, Nathan said, "For my birthday next week, I'd like a soccer ball." Right, you join the soccer club. I'll make sure to tell your father. Will Dad go shopping with me? Nathan looked anxious. I reflexively stroked his head. Don't worry. I'll make sure he finds the time. Okay. I don't think his anxiety was completely relieved. But that was all I could do. After that, at home and work, I repeatedly mentioned Nathan's birthday to Kevin. Got it. You're being persistent. Since you usually do nothing, at least take the day off for his birthday. It's a must.
Yeah.
A trace of unease remained. However, I had no choice but to trust Kevin at that moment. Holding that uneasiness, Nathan's birthday came around. I took the day off and was preparing a feast for Nathan when I noticed Kevin was about to leave. Could he be going to work? I asked, and Kevin only replied that there was a surprise. What, had he really thought about Nathan? Relieved, I sent Kevin off. Soon, preparations for celebrating Nathan's birthday were done. That's when Kevin returned. I'm home. I heard Kevin's cheerful voice. What kind of surprise was he planning? Excitedly, I waited for Kevin to enter the living room. Sorry to keep you waiting. Here's the surprise. What Kevin presented was the woman next to him. A young woman with bold makeup holding a large paper bag. I recognized her. Happy birthday, Nathan. A present from your future mom. The woman handed the paper bag to Nathan. Nathan looked a bit perplexed. I understood his feelings. I too felt something off in her words. Future mom. What do you mean, Anna Baker? I addressed the woman before me, Anna Baker. Meanwhile, Anna tilted her head. What? I mean it just as I said. Her exaggerated gesture irked me. But then, Kevin intervened. What, you still don't get it? What do you mean? Can you explain? I mean, Anna will remarry me and become Nathan's mom. That's what I'm saying. Bang. Kevin slammed the divorce papers on the table. Then, he casually showed the marriage registration form in his chest pocket. You get it, right? Divorce, it's divorce. Being with you is just boring. Speechless and dumbfounded, I was suspecting infidelity. But I never dreamed I'd receive a divorce paper like this. Why? I prefer younger women to an old hag like you. That's all there is to it. Hearing this left me speechless. There was only one thing I could say. Thank you for everything. I thanked Kevin. Then, I hugged Nathan. I had a faint suspicion that Kevin was cheating. So, I was ready to discuss divorce. However, that should be discussed between us two, not in front of a child. Moreover, bringing his mistress to our home was unthinkable. My patience finally snapped. If that's how it's going to be, I'll fight this through to the end. You will be alone crying and regretting this decision in no time, Kevin. I gave Kevin a stern look. At the same time, I noticed Anna. Then, Anna started smirking and spoke. What's with that look? Scary. Help me, Kevin. Oh, are you okay? Sorry about the old hag of an ex-wife. Kevin made a comforting gesture towards Anna. His exaggerated actions infuriated me even more. However, my top priority now was to comfort Nathan. Nathan. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Shall we go to Grandpa's place? For now, I decided to take Nathan to my father's house. We would discuss everything later. I'll contact you once I've filed for divorce. We'll talk about the alimony after that, okay? I said as I took Nathan to his room. While calming him down, I packed his clothes in a bag. I'm sorry, Nathan, that it has come to this. I won't hand Nathan over to such a woman. As I thought this, Nathan said something unexpected. I don't like Dad anyway. But, are you okay, Mom? Nathan looked worriedly into my face. It was clear Nathan was also shocked. However, his shock wasn't about our divorce. I later learned that he was shocked to hear Anna would become his mother. But at that moment, all I could think about was leaving the house with only the essentials. We immediately left the house and headed to my parents' home. My parents listened to the situation and kindly took us in. I left Nathan with my parents and went to the city hall. There, I signed and submitted the divorce papers. Remember this, Kevin. You will pay for hurting Nathan. I then headed to work. It was a holiday, but the shop was open. Of course, holidays are the busiest times. I greeted the employees in the shop and entered the office. My mother-in-law was there. With several employees around, I handed her my resignation letter. What is this? It's my resignation letter. The office buzzed as I spoke. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law coolly retorted. Kevin just left with a young girl. Did it turn into a divorce discussion? Yes. I've filed the divorce papers. Oh, good. Now we'll be rid of a nagging daughter-in-law. My mother-in-law snorted. I stared at her and spoke my piece. Well, this means we are no longer related. Make sure Kevin understands that. Fine by me. We won't have any problems without you. Her words irritated me. However, I was about to leave the office without responding when I noticed the employees trembling. Wondering why, I saw Kevin enter. "Mom, I'm getting divorced and remarried." Kevin announced this to his mother as he entered. Then he noticed I was there. "What? What are you doing here, Rachel?" "I just came to submit my resignation."
Ah,
"That's right. This clears everything up." Kevin grinned. Anna was also behind him. I glanced at Anna briefly before informing Kevin. "Well, repaying the loans will be tough, but I hope you all manage." "Loans? What are you talking about?" Kevin looked confused. I sighed and answered. "The company's loans. In other words, the debt. Make sure you pay it back." "Huh? Was there such a thing?" Kevin looked at an employee nearby. The employee nodded slightly. "Yes, there is. Don't you know, Mr. President? You were supposed to handle all that administrative stuff, isn't that what you said?" "Oh, that's right. Well, I'll make sure to explain everything before I leave." I walked to my desk. I started up the computer and showed him a particular file. "This is a list of the company's loans, including operating capital and equipment investment expenses. There are many." Kevin was shocked as he looked over the list. Then, he raised his voice at me. "What is this amount? Why have we taken out so many loans? We had no choice because you and your mother kept wasting money." No matter what I said, the two of them wouldn't stop squandering the company's expenses. I realized that if this continued, it would strain our management. So, I temporarily took out loans. Afterwards, I managed to reduce expenses subtly and started paying off the loans with the profits. Over several years, I improved what had been terrible financial results. But that ends today. From tomorrow, Kevin and his team will have to manage on their own. Moreover, now that I'm leaving, I had to deliver one more piece of terrible news. About that loan, the repayment is due by the end of this month. "What? Why do we have to repay it all at once?" "That's the agreement. If I quit, the loan must be repaid immediately." When I took out the loans, I consulted with the bank. However, our financial results were not very good. They said we could have a small amount of financing because our sales were strong. But a larger loan was impossible. So, I thought about it. Should we manage with a small loan? Or should I devise a long-term repayment plan? In the end, I chose the latter. And relying on my own connections, I managed to secure the loans for the company. In other words, the lender trusted me to provide the loans. Therefore, if I were no longer there, the repayment could not be guaranteed. So I arranged for the loan to be repaid immediately if I left. What? That's ridiculous. It was the only way because the waste of expenses wasn't decreasing. I looked alternately at Kevin and my ex-mother-in-law. Both of them averted their gaze. There's no grace period for the loan, so if they demand repayment, you'll have to pay it back immediately. What are we supposed to do? We've been pouring funds into the redevelopment project at the train station. I don't know. If you want to avoid bankruptcy, you'll have to make the repayment. What the? Kevin slumped down. Glancing at my ex-mother-in-law, she was panicking. Seeing their amusing distress, I continued tauntingly. Well, make sure to repay it before they start interfering with the management. What? Interfere with management? If you don't repay the loan, that might happen. Like changing the president, that sort of thing. I smirked ostentatiously. Then, Kevin started trembling. Leaving them to their fates, I exited the office. Anna was standing at the entrance, watching me. I returned her gaze with a smile. As we passed each other, Anna muttered, Remember this, you wicked woman. That should be you, the one who cheated. I thought so but did not say it aloud. Regardless, there was no turning back now. Let them fall into financial trouble. That was my thought, but it did not turn out that way. Apparently, Kevin managed to secure funds from somewhere. The lender informed me that the loan had been fully repaid. Well then, until the next move. I muttered to myself and plotted my next act of revenge. A few days later, I went to Kevin's house to pick up my belongings. Unexpectedly, he was waiting for me. Of course, even though I had belongings there, I couldn't enter the house without permission since we were divorced. I had contacted him in advance, knowing I would be under supervision. But something seemed off. Because he was waiting outside the entrance. Why are you waiting outside? There's something I want to ask you. What do you want to ask? As I responded, Kevin seemed unusually irritated as he continued. Ever since you left, our clients have been dropping like flies. It seems that since I left the company, lease contracts have been terminated one after another. Also, the number of customers requesting custom-made items has decreased. And contracts that were being negotiated have been cancelled. Oh really? Isn't that your fault? It goes without saying, I knew the reason. But I did not want to just tell him the reason. So, I made a snide comment. Then, Kevin suddenly became angry. Don't play dumb. It's your doing. On what basis are you saying that? Our employees said so. Most of our current customers are your acquaintances. Indeed, the employees knew the company's situation better than President Kevin. In fact, many of our current clients were my acquaintances. More specifically, many were introduced to me as clients by my uncle on my mother's side, who is in business. In essence, the contracts were not so much secured through my connections as through my uncle's. Naturally, with me gone, these relationships were virtually non-existent. Obviously, if the company was conducting good business, clients would continue their association. However, Kevin lacks management skills and has the tendency to bring personal issues into business. Like making his mother an executive. It's understandable to feel uncertain about the company's future. That's probably why the contracts are being cancelled one after another. That's unfortunate, isn't it? Don't joke around. Are you the one causing trouble? Sorry, but I just quit the company. The contracts were cancelled because of incompetence, not because of me. At my words, Kevin was at a loss for words. He looked at me with frustration, so I continued. The fact that you are blaming me shows you are incompetent. All of this is the result of the seeds you sowed, right? That's not true. Yes, it is true. You are the manager of the company. You cheated. And you left me. How much had I supported him? Maybe now he'd understand a bit. But even if he does understand now, what's lost will never return. With a snort, I saw Kevin tearfully biting his lip. I slipped past him and entered the house. Then, I packed up mine and Nathan's belongings. Just as I finished contacting the moving company, Kevin muttered softly. Fine. I'll make a comeback with the redevelopment project at the train station. Don't come crying to me when I'm successful again. With that, Kevin pushed me out of the house and sharply closed the front door. Silly man. As if I'd give him a chance to turn things around. If it's going to be a fight, I'll go all out. I will never forgive Kevin and his actions. They have done enough to deserve this. I will push them to the edge. With those thoughts, I turned my back on Kevin's house. But what exactly is Kevin planning to do to revive the company? Knowing his plan would help in coming up with my scheme. If it's come to this, I'll use my last resort. I made a phone call. Then, a few weeks later, I was visiting a local company with my new boss. Many things had happened around me during these weeks. First, I demanded compensation from Kevin and Anna. Kevin complained but agreed to pay the amount I demanded. Of course, a lump sum payment was difficult. So, he promised to pay in several installments. Meanwhile, Anna refused to pay compensation. But when I mentioned taking it to court, her attitude changed. Apparently, Anna's father, who was troubled by the prospect of a lawsuit, decided it was best to pay. Upon further investigation, I discovered Anna's father was a real estate agent. He didn't want to be seen having problems as he is part of the redevelopment project at the train station. The redevelopment project at the station is quite significant among public constructions. It was too lucrative to ignore. Eventually, Anna's father settled by paying the compensation. I'll pay the compensation, so accept my remarriage to Kevin. Anna said that to me, but it was none of my concern. Do whatever you like, I told her, and she laughed triumphantly. Thus, with the end to all the divorce issues, I embraced a fresh start with a new job. My first assignment was the office visit today. But unexpectedly, I ran into someone there. What? Why is Rachel here? Gah. Kevin? I ran into Kevin at the reception of the visit. Anna was there too. I averted my eyes. But it was too late after we had seen each other. Kevin approached me aggressively, staring intently. What, you still want to cause trouble? That's. I wouldn't say I was not intending to interfere. But bumping into him was unexpected. This could cause trouble for the place we were visiting. And for my boss accompanying me. What should I do? I was perplexed. Meanwhile, Kevin started complaining. Basically, what is a woman like you doing here? I'm here for work. I hesitated. But Kevin wouldn't even let that pass. Work? This is a real estate company that will manage the building being developed at the train station. I know that. And it's a major player in the real estate industry. There's no point in you coming here. Kevin laughed. Anna laughed along with him. The same could be said for you. You're out of place here. Out of place. Our company is the biggest interior leasing company in this area. The new building would house a hotel and shopping facilities. Naturally, a lot of interior design would be necessary. Kevin's company was about the only one that could handle it. Anna spoke arrogantly. That might have been true in the past. But now, as I pondered, my boss intervened. Hello. You must be her ex-husband. I haven't had the chance to greet you since I couldn't attend her wedding. Huh? Who are you? I'm her boss, John. Well, I'm also her uncle. As my uncle said that, Kevin's expression changed. Staring intently at my uncle's face, Kevin murmured. Could it be? John, are you from that famous interior company? Yes, we do interior designing work, including leasing and custom designs. In fact, my uncle's business is in interior designing. This includes painting and plastering as part of the interior work, as well as wall covering. Additionally, my uncle's company also undertakes furniture making. Furniture making involves making built-in furniture. Because of this, there are furniture craftsmen employed at my uncle's company. Of course, they also know many general furniture craftsmen to select furniture that matches the interiors. So, my uncle's company handles domestic interiors as well. So, does that mean our goals are the same? Kevin asks timidly. I smile wryly and nod. In a broad sense, yes. But, we've also started taking on interior construction projects. Wait a minute. John's company isn't even. I understand what Kevin wants to say. Actually, my uncle's company isn't local. It's not in our rural area, but right in the middle of the city. That alone makes taking on this job seem unnatural. Kevin probably wanted to say just that. But there is a reason for it. Actually, my dear niece got divorced and came to me wanting to get revenge on her ex. At my uncle's words, Kevin turns pale. Amidst this, my uncle continues. We were planning to open a branch much earlier. But since my niece became a rival to her husband's company. In essence, my uncle's company overlaps with Kevin's company in some areas of business. Of course, only in terms of handling furniture. Otherwise, they are completely different industries. But that overlap was worrying. My uncle's company is fairly well known. Meanwhile, Kevin's company is only known locally. If my uncle were to establish a branch, there could be a risk of losing clients. I thought about this. So I made a proposal to my uncle. Instead of my uncle's company, let's have Kevin's company supply the furniture. Essentially, I got it treated as a local company connected to my uncle's company. Naturally, because of my uncle's company's reputation, it was easy to secure contracts initially. That's how I managed to boost Kevin's company's credibility and recover its performance. We also held off on my uncle's company expanding further. In doing so, I was protecting Kevin's company. But with Kevin's cheating and our divorce, I no longer had a reason to protect Kevin's company. So, I had my uncle move into the local area, and I got a job with my uncle's company. Of course, since the industries are different, it's uncertain whether this will affect Kevin's company. Still, I could disrupt Kevin's plans for a turnaround with the redevelopment project. That's what I thought, but the impact seems to have been more significant than expected. Hearing the situation from me, Kevin collapsed on the spot. Moreover, he even started crying right there. It's no use. It's all over. Embarrassed by the scene, I quickly left the place with my uncle. Afterward, Kevin's company, betting on the redevelopment project, went bankrupt in no time. Apparently, trying to cash in on the redevelopment project. He had been throwing money around everywhere. Moreover, it seems he was moving money under the table, even paying people who had no authority. All of that became wasted, and the inability to recover funds led to bankruptcy. It also emerged that Kevin borrowed from various places to repay the company's loans. Since this was purely personal debt, Kevin is now facing demands for significant repayments. Interestingly, Kevin has started working as a construction worker at the redevelopment site to repay his debts. His mother is working alongside him, and they plan to support each other in paying off the debts. However, Anna, who remarried Kevin, feels deceived and is in conflict with him. She has already started preparing for divorce mediation. So it seems Anna has no intention to support Kevin. By the way, Anna is being asked by her father to repay the compensation I received. Thus, Anna's situation also seems precarious. In the end, it seems everyone has fallen to rock bottom. Contrary to the misery of Kevin and others, I am leading a happy life. I am doing well in my job at my uncle's company, and Nathan seems to be doing better. Suddenly curious, I asked Nathan as he was getting ready for school. Nathan, aren't you shocked about your father? Why all of a sudden? Are you planning to remarry? Not really. But if he's not shocked or sad, that's fine. Because now, Nathan is everything to me. I will do my best for Nathan. With that thought, I left the house with Nathan.